Text number 9, my tiresome neighbour. As the train approached the seaside town where I was going to spend my holidays, I went into the corridor to stretch my legs. I stayed there for a short time, breathing in the fresh sea air and talking to one of the passengers. When I turned to go back to my seat, I happened to glance into the compartment next to mine. Sitting there was a man who had many years before had been my neighbour. He was a great talker, I remembered. It used to take hours to get away from him once he began a conversation. I didn't wish to meet him now, when my holiday was about to begin. Luckily, at that moment, he was much too busy talking to the man opposite him to catch sight of me. I slipped back into my compartment, took down my 2 suitcases and carried them to the end of the corridor. The moment the train stopped, I called a porter, who in no time at all had carried my luggage out of the station and found me a taxi. As I drove towards my small hotel on the edge of town, I breathed a deep sigh of relief at my narrow escape. There was little chance that I should be run into my boring ex-neighbour again. When I reached the hotel, I rested in my room until it was time for dinner. Then I went down to the lounge and ordered a drink. I hadn't even begun to drink when an all-too-familiar voice greeted me. My tiresome neighbour grasped me warmly by the hand and insisted that we should share a table in the dining room. "This is a pleasant surprise," he said. "I'd never expected to see you again after all these years." Text number 24. Peter finds the room. After a hasty breakfast in the station restaurant, Peter set about the task of finding a room where he could live for the next few months. He knew exactly what he wanted, a room which was neither too small nor so large that it would be difficult to heat in winter. It had to be clean and comfortable too, but above all it had to be quiet, with a view that did not look directly onto the street. In the newspaper he had brought down from the bookstall, a notice in bold capital letters caught his eye: "Flat and rooms to let." This seemed promising, so he made a note of the address and he set off to the agency. The woman at the desk gave him a bright smile as he entered, and after he had explained what sort of room he was looking for, gave him a small fee of £2, a list of about half a dozen landladies who had rooms to let. At the first house Peter tried, the landlady, who looked about 70 years old, was so deaf that he had to shout to make her hear. At the second house on the list all the rooms were taken. At the third the landlady was not at home. Peter was beginning to feel less hopeful when he noticed there was a telephone number after one of the addresses on the list. Peter rang up the landlady and inquired if she had a room to let. He was pleasantly relieved to hear that she had one vacant. He hurried round to the house, which stood well back from the road in a pleasant avenue. The room he was shown lay on the back of the house, overlooking a garden full of flowers and bushes. Without hesitation he told the landlady that he would take the room, paid a week's rent in advance, and went back to the station to get his luggage.